Hello and good day everybody again. My name is Nelvin Amos from Simon Technologies Tutorials. In this video we will learn how to link two drop-downs using JSON, jQuery and Razor technologies. I have three simple ways that I wanted to introduce here. There may be plenty more, but of which I find that these three simple ways are very efficient and easy to use. Before we proceed, let me show you the demo of what we're trying to do. As you can see, in this page, we have two drop-downs. One is the category and one is the item. This is the primary and this is the secondary. So when I select any items from the first one, the second item changes. Alright, so this is what we will try to achieve. As I said, there are different ways of doing it, of which I prefer three approaches. And we will learn each of them in this video. The first one is using client script only, which is JavaScript and jQuery and JSON. The second one is when we wanted to retrieve the data dynamically from the server by submitting an additional request to the server using Ajax calls, JSON and jQuery. And the third one is a slightly similar approach to dynamically getting data, but we will ask Razor to help us generate the content. So it's a slightly different approaches, but which are very practical and which you will come across in your day-to-day activities when you need this kind of scenarios. So without much delay, let's get started. Okay, so we have Visual Studio open. Let's start by creating a new project. A web application, ASP.NET web application. And in this one, I will call it linking to drop-downs. All right. And I'll choose MVC. I don't want to complicate anything, so let's choose no authentication and click on. All right, so we have the application, a project setup. Let's close this. And the first thing that I wanted to create, if you remember from the demo that we have two drop-downs, which is primary and secondary. I wanted to create the model that I wanted to use for these two drop-downs. Let's start with that. So in the models folder, right-click add a class. Let's give a name. Let's say my model, anything. Okay. Start by creating a category class. Let's say in this one, I need an integer and ID. Prop, tab. Let's say just a name. So this is going to be the category. I'm going to copy and then paste. Let's call this product. A product will also have their ID and name. A product will have a category ID. All right, the reason why we're creating a model here is because I'm not trying to use a database or anything to make this project simpler. So I'm just creating a class model, which we will be using for the purpose of this video. All right, next what we need is we need to have a list of product, right? I'm just going to prepare the model that I need in this video quickly. Public class products, which will be a list of product. Okay, and what I need is the initializer itself, public products. Whenever I am creating a new products, I wanted to know what's the category, and in that category, how many products do I want it to add for the count. All right, this way I make it easier. Instead of doing a loop and for each to add products one at a time, by the creation of a new instance of these products, I'm immediately going to be able to populate the whole data. So for integer I equal to 0, I is less than product count I plus plus. Let's immediately add this dot add new product. All right, you don't worry if you don't follow this through, because this is not the intent of this tutorial. This dot count plus 1. Category ID will be the category that I receive, and then the name that I wanted to have will be let's do string.concat. So category ID, and then say item, and then we'll say this dot count plus 1. All right, so this prepares my products. Now these products, I will also add it into products. Products get set. All right, so finally, the last thing that I need is I need to have the list of products. So let's call it store items. Okay, which is the list of category. I'm sorry, not list of products, list of category. And then in this one, let's add one more, public void add category integer product count. So whenever I add a new product category, I will just specify the list of product counts. The same way as we're doing it here, I'll just copy this section, paste it here. It will be new category, ID is count, and the name will be, instead of item, category underscore 123. And I also need to initialize the list of products. So products equals new products. So this is where I'll pass this dot count plus one. This is the ID of the category and what's the count of the product. So my model is ready and we are okay to start doing the main tutorial. So let's go to the home. So how will I use my model? The first thing I'll do is let me create store item, control dot. This does not give me any options, so control dot again. Oh great, so we got one here. Store items, my store items is equal to new store items. Okay, so what I'll do next, I will create a few categories. So store items dot add category. This category will have how many products? Just one product. So likewise, I will be able to do so many things. Let's say this will have 5 products, this will have 3, this will have 7. So I'm ready to go. Okay, so now before we start passing on, let's also pass these store items to the client. We're ready? Let's build it. Okay, so building is all fine. Now I wanted to show, first of all, how things are aligned. I'll put a breakpoint here so that we understand exactly what is happening. Okay, so we get the breakpoint. I'm going to debug, press F10 one by one to understand what's the data. So we see the first store item has got only one category 1, and there is one product which has got one category 1 item 1. If I go hit F10, let's see, this one is expected to have 3 items, which is 0, 1, 2, the second index. So 0, 1, 2 is expected to have 3 products, 3 item 1, 3 item 2. Okay, so our model is good and ready, and we get the home page. So let's do a little cleanup before we start. So we go to views, shared, layout, and I do not want the footer and all those things. I just remove this. Well, I'll just remove the HR section and the text section. And from the index, let's remove the whole of it. Let's put some space. Let's prepare the layout. Div class equal to container, div class equal to row, just to do some styling, class equal to call md, say 3. Okay, and let's put a bold saying this is category, break, and select. I wanted to copy the same thing, and we'll call this items. Let's go check what we get. Okay, so we have got 2 items now. So the next thing that we have to do is we have to start populating them. Look at this. We already passed the model, which is store items, which is nothing but a list of category. So let's declare model as linking to drop downs. Sorry. Store items. So we now populate the data by using the HTML, which is at HTML dot dropdown list. We'll give any name. Let's say this is a category item. Then we will say new, select list. What do I want? I want it from the model. What do I want to be the key? What do I want to be the value? Is the name. And let's put a default label that says select category, or let's not do it this time. Okay, let's just leave it here. And as for the second one, because the second one is going to be dynamic, that is dependent on when this one gets loaded, let's see what we get. All right, so now we get 1, 2, 3, 4 categories in all, which is all good. Moving on, I wanted to style this a little bit, so let's say give some HTML attributes. I'm going to remove this. New class equals form control. Okay, now I also wanted to set something called on change. I wanted to load the value of the values on the item drop down. So what I'll do here is on change equal to load items. Okay, so I will also declare some ID for reference, ID equal to product, and also give a class which is form control to make it look good. Now let's see. All right, so everything looks good and nice, but this one does not have any items yet. So let's create what is going to be here. Script function load items. To make it simpler, I will pass 2 variables. One will be who is the sender of the item, and other one is which element that I wanted to update when I change. So let's say target. All right, I'll pass the same thing here. So the sender is this object, and the target element that I'm going to target is the one with the ID product. So I'll say product. Sounds good. Okay, so now using a little bit of JavaScript document class, let's say variable, the actual target equals document dot get element by ID. So we already get the target. And what's the value? The value that is selected equal to sender dot value. Let's see if we get all these documents right. So we'll say console.log cell ID, and let's refresh the page and let's see what happens. Press F12 to see the debugging mode or the developers mode, and let's hit refresh. Okay, we get this too. Now let's see. When I change this, I'm getting 2. Change this, I'm getting 3, getting 4, getting 1. So the script is working, JavaScript's loaded fine and everything looks good. Now the next thing is to populate the list of items from this one. The first and easiest way that we identified here in this case is by the time the page is rendered here, we already have the list of all the items that were supposed to be linked with whatever is the primary drop down. But the problem is this model that we have is a server-side model, and it is not available to the client until it is rendered to the client. So you cannot directly access this value into the server. So that is the problem. So first thing that I wanted to do here is I wanted to convert it into a variable, something that is readable by the client side, which is going to be in the form of JSON. Why? Because this one is a list element, and I prefer that this is a simple model which JSON will pretty much, be able to represent it without any issue. So let's say call it store store variable. What do? I can say model. This doesn't look very well, because if I do it, you will see what happens. You will see that this variable will store the object and it will not be readable by JavaScript. So what I have to do is I have to serialize this in a string. So let's do that. Let's say new JavaScript serializer dot serialize the model. Okay, this namespace is missing, so let's do system.web.script.serialization dot. We're good. So to check if we get the data right, let's see console.log store variable. Go back to the testing server. Let's clear this, refresh the page. Oops, I'm sorry. Refresh the page again. I think we don't get anything. I'm going back. I'm going to check if there's any problem here. All right, I think I missed this. So let's see. Refresh. All right, so there we go. So we have the data, but everything is in the form of an HTML encoded string. So before I wanted to proceed, I wanted to make sure that this one is in the form of html.raw. That will convert everything in a proper text the way I expected. Refresh gives me this. Now everything looks good. ID1, name, category. So this data is now available to the client. But again, this is just a simple string. So to make parsing easier, what I will do is I will convert this string into JSON. So json.parse. So now this becomes JSON. Have a look at it. You see this is a plain string. Now I'm going to refresh this. Okay, so now you see that this is into a JSON object now, which JavaScript will be able to manage it very easily, and everything is indexed properly. 0, 1, 2, 3, category 1, 2, 3, 4, and it has got all the items that I need. Products, 1 item. So we have all the entries that we need. All that we need to do now is start working on it. All right, so let's get back here. So what do we want it to do? Let's remove this. And we have a jQuery function which iterates everything. It's an equivalent of for each in C#. Each, we have to pass the array that is store variable. And for each, this is the index, this is the element. What do we want it to do? For each of the items that we have to check if the category. So each of this element becomes a category. Category.id equals the selected ID. All right, if it equals the selected ID, all I have to do is I have to loop through each of the product and start adding them to the drop down. So what I'll do is again another for each e.products function IIEE, just to make that this one is a mini section. So what I'll do is using jQuery again, I'll say target dot append option and I'll put plus and I'll add the value here as ee.name. So let's find out what happens. Refresh. I'll close this off. So when I change the category to 2, I see 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, change to 3. Whoa, okay, item number 2 does not get removed, but 3 gets added, which is good. If I go to 4, so everything's working. All I need to do is do the cleanup code. Now I think it's better to add here, so let's do jQuery again, target plus all the options within it, remove. So basically what I'll do is whenever it calls the method, I will clear everything that is there in the target, every options, right? Not the target, but every options in the target. And then I'll add a new value. Let's see what happens. Two, 3, 4. All right, so we're good. A question is whether if this is the best option we can do. Probably not, because say for example, in this scenario I have only 4 categories. Let's say in a real scenario you may end up having 100 categories, right? So would you want the server to keep looping all the 100 options here? Probably not. So maybe you can put a break or return or anything, but to me I would want it to comment this off, and I wanted to introduce another one which is a lot easier. Sorry, I think I did not have this shortcut for this, so I'll just comment this off. Let me introduce one option, which is the jQuery option, which is an equivalent of searching a jQuery. So items, which is called grep. Grep will ask you a list, which I will say store variable, and just like this in for each, but grep has a different it's reverse of for each, so the element comes first and the index comes second in grep. What's the rule? I simply have to say return wherever the e.id is equals the selected id, return only this item. So now this grep method will already do a select star from this list where the id is equal to this, and it will only return a category whose items is equal to this. Now the reason is this is a list item. We can iterate. We know it will always be only one item, but the item that is returned by this one is list. So we can pick up the first item by doing first or default. The first option. But we really do not want to do, because we are not sure whether there will always be a result. So it's always better to loop through it. So let's do each, and then the grep result, which is nothing but the item. And then the same thing comes again, IE. Okay, and then let's copy the same code that we have here. Okay, so what do we have here for each product? Which should probably be the same, so let's look at it. Oops, we got an issue. And that is because item is not defined. Where is that item? Okay, spelling issue. So all right, it's working. So that's a lot easier method, and you can get a lot cleaner code, and it looks a little advanced than the previous one. So I can remove this section and replace this item with these items passed. It should do the same thing. So now I get a lot cleaner code and a little advanced writing, right? It will become shorter. All right, so with that we are done with the first module, wherein the JavaScript, jQuery, and JSON only. Why am I saying this? Because in this scenario what we have all the models, all the data, the category, the product items, everything in the very first request of the entry. On the very first request itself we get all the data, and we have all the data which we convert into JSON variable, JSON string, and then we manage every item by the client script only. So changing of the items, everything is managed by the client. Now the next thing I wanted to introduce here is point number 2 of our a tutorial which is client script and server interaction, wherein we wanted to dynamically request the server for the list of products. Now let me explain why this is required. The reason is, if you look at how technology goes today, we have web APIs, we have different APIs that may or may not give you the result that you need in the first query itself, right? Some web APIs may have different methods to request the list of categories first. Then they will expose another method where you can request the list of product items on the second request. So in those scenarios, this second logic is going to be very useful. And in fact, many times this is the preferred option. So let's create a same method. Everything's going to be the same. I'm going to copy this, paste it, remove this section first. All right, load item in Ajax. So what do I want it to do in Ajax? I want it to introduce Ajax concept like this, semicolon. Ajax, what do I have to pass? I have to pass the URL. I have to pass the type, which is the type. Let's say this is a get method, not a post. And let's say the data type of this one is JSON only. And then when I'm successful, what do I want it to do? I want it to do this, execute this function. If I have an error, I want it to execute this and give an alert to the user saying xhr.response text, whatever is the error message that we get. So this is a simple Ajax syntax that we wanted to use. In this one, we need to have a method declared here that will give us where is going to be the responder. So here, okay, I have to stop the code. Okay, so let's create one. Public action result, get products. Okay, let's say products. Category ID. Category ID. All right, and because we're not using a database, we have to initialize again. So let me just copy this list. This you can, in production, you can retrieve it from the database context or anything. And I will say variable, the item that I wanted to return is equal to store items dot where x.id equals category ID dot first or default. Now this is the store item. This is the store item now. This is the category item, everything. Then if the item is not equals null, I'll return a JSON string. It's very simple in MVC. Just say JSON. And I will show you why I need to give this JSON request behavior in a little while. So let me not add it. I'll leave it purposefully here. And then return, otherwise return JSON. Let's give a simple array like this. I'm going to build this, and I know that the method is get product. I'm going to go back to my script here, and I'm going to put at url.action, this one. Well, I can actually just simply put like this, saying home get products, but I really don't want it because that is less flexible, right? Because you're hard coding an URL. So I wanted the Razor engine itself to generate the URL for us. So now we have everything ready. Whenever the response comes, I want it to lock the result in the console window. At the same time, I also have to go up and change the on-click event, this one, to load items Ajax. Let's see what we get. Clear these, refresh. Okay. I changed this. I'm getting an issue. That was because, why did I put it? Because I put the parameters contains null category ID. Oh, I'm sorry, that is my mistake. I did not put data. So here, category ID is the cell ID. Sounds good. Put a comma. Okay, so if I change it, Now I get an issue. The request has been blocked because sensitive information could be disclosed. This is because I did not put the JSON request behavior on a get method. This is a security feature that is implemented by MVC default. Whenever you're trying to request for a JSON or return type on a get method. All right, so what we have to do, go back here and explicitly specify that we allow a get method. Allow get. Okay, the same thing I'll do for here as well. Build it. Okay, go back, refresh the page. And when I change this, now I'm getting the data that is coming from the server. Just one item, which is of category 3, 4. So I'm getting items of category 4. So what's my task now? It is the same JSON that I am working on the other time, which is the same JSON. So I can continue to reuse the same thing that I wanted to do here. So simple. So what I will do is, let me copy this section. This is no longer required. So only getting the products out of it is now my requirement. So what I will do, copy E. It's no longer an E. It's the XHR dot products. That should do the trick. So let's see. Going back to the page, refresh, clear this, change it. You see 2 1 2 3 till 1 2 3 4 5. Why is this? Oh, it's getting doubled. Probably somewhere I'm getting duplicates. Where could the problem be? It doesn't look like having a problem. Oh, all right, so this is the problem. We have the codes here that was adding a double entry to it. So okay, so that should work. So if I refresh the page, 2, all right, so we get everything good. So now we get the second part of the topic working. Now what is the third part of the topic? The third way, or the third method, is to use a combination of script, Ajax, jQuery, the same way that we do, but we wanted the page to be generated by Razor. I'll show you why we need this. First, let's learn the tricks. I'll copy the same thing here. It's going to be very easy, trust me. So Ajax, and I'll add one more line here, Razor. Okay, so in this one we will add another one, get products, Razor method. I'll copy this, go back to the controller. Okay, I have to stop again. Products, copy, paste. So this is a Razor, so we need a view at this stage. So what I'll do is I'll add a new view. I'll just name it. It's going to be a partial view. All right, so we get the page, what we wanted to do before that. Let's do a cleanup. The same old code for everything. I'm getting it, except returning JSON. We will return a partial view, passing the item as the model. So build this. At the same time, go back here and declare the model as linking to dropdowns.models. We know that it is a category. So what we will do is, for its variable product in model.products, products, we wanted to generate an option item. What's going to be the level? Product dot name is going to be displayed, and I want the value also should be product.id. All right, looks good. So we are done. Actually, we're done. Okay, but the only thing that I wanted to do here is before adding it flatly, I wanted to keep checking what I get from the server first. So this is it. Let me replace the method here again. Let's see. Going back to the page, Control F5. Okay. So you see on the page, I'm getting everything. Options, item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, item 5. Without me requiring to write any of the XML script. So what I will do is go back to this page, and instead of this, I will just simply assign on the target dot append everything that I get. Let's see. So the items are coming up fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right. So we get everything up and running, and we get everything going. Let me spend 1 or 2 more minutes explaining why all of these approaches are good, and you cannot say none of them are useless, right? Because depending on scenario, the first approach that we have is when we have all the data easily available to us in the very first page load itself. Usually this is used when you are creating your own internal projects, or when you are creating a single standalone application where everything is in your hands and everything is in your power to do whatever you want. You can pass all the models, you can pass everything, or whenever the server gives you all the details in the first request itself. It is good so that you can avoid, multiple server calls, and you can handle everything in JavaScript. The second reason, the second way, which is a good thing, is because without this, there is really no way. You don't want to reload the whole page just to refresh the second option, right? So when you are working on an API or some kind of a product that does not give you all the information in the first section, then you can use the second option to load the data dynamically. Now, why am I introducing the third option is because of various reasons. There are certain limitations in the second option because everything is is in the form of a JSON string. Now imagine that you wanted to do a lot of stylings, or imagine that this options requires a lot of additional JavaScripting classes, like class equals js underscore blah blah blah, and then you wanted to say data attribute data validation equal to true. So if you wanted to do some kind of an additional model related validation, which will end up adding 7, 8, 20 attributes in all of this, right? It doesn't look really efficient to write all this method in a JavaScript, right? So in that scenario, when you are using this logic, and when you are using this Razor engine, and when you declare everything in the data annotation on this category, this Razor engine will automatically take care of assigning all the values, all the properties that you need. All you have to do is ignore all of these manual errors, and you can simply append the text. And this logic is also good when you are trying to populate a secondary item, not just a secondary drop-down, but maybe a div element, or a secondary form, or a secondary element, or any other additional things, right? You can do it in either ways, but I would say, depending on the complexity of the second element that you wanted to load, you might want to use this, or you might want to use this. That I would leave it purely to your discretion on what you wanted to use based on the scenario that you're trying to solve. So in a nutshell, that's all about this tutorial. We are done, and I hope you like the video. If you like it, please subscribe or like it, and looking forward to seeing you in my next videos. Thank you for watching.